Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to the Worth Your Time podcast video podcast. I'm joined today by Arian Simone. Arian, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, I caught you off guard. You didn't know you were going to be on video. You didn't know you were going to be on video.
That's a disclaimer. And it's so wild because I had a face peel. So like my face is peeling in the midst of all this.
Well,
so
you can't see that. You can't see that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm headed out for a run after this. And I'm like, oh, gosh, but we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work.
We're going to make it work. And you know what? I'm a runner, so I totally get it. How far are you going to run?
It's 3 miles.
Okay.
It's in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's usually actually about what I do.
I love it though.
Got to keep up the workouts, man. They help me a lot mentally.
I would say my mental, like I have to, like if I don't, it's just like, yeah.
Especially during COVID.
Oh yeah. Like I have to get out and run.
Totally. I'm with you on that. Well, let me do a quick introduction of you. You just published a book, Fearless Money Mindset, Broke Doesn't Scare Me. And you are a successful author, speaker, investor, founder of the Fearless Fund, which exists to invest in women of color-owned businesses. And I want to talk more about that. And but you didn't start here, of course. And I know that you have kind of a fascinating life story. And you don't have to take an hour to tell it, but I would love to hear sort of the short version of how you went from sort of normal person going through high school to, this very successful entrepreneur who is so committed to investing in businesses and really helping women.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So the journey. I'm born and raised Detroit, Michigan. I attended Florida A&M University for college, majored in business, and I've always known I wanted to be a businesswoman since I was a little kid. Like literally, one of my partners, Keisha, she always says that I probably would have sold my mother's placenta coming out of the womb, and if I figured out a way to make money off of it. So I've always been fascinated by entrepreneurship and business, and I was raised around business owners, and it was something that I've always taken to. And when I was in college, I was raising capital for my mall-based retail store. And I remembered then how difficult that was. And I told myself before the grand opening that one day I was going to be the investor that I was looking for. And that one day, of course, is the manifestation of what I do currently. But in between there, I closed the store, graduated school, moved to Los Angeles. And I thought I had a job. Well, I did have a job. I moved there working for Nellie's Apple Bottoms. And that's correct. I had a job. And I was doing product placement, and I was placing the products on celebrities. I found it Contact and placed it on Tyra Banks. I placed it on Jessica Simpson, and I placed it on Oprah Winfrey. So
wow.
I'm like, this is all within a 30-day window at the company, my first time there. And they're like, the president wants to see you. And I'm just like, of course. Like, it's around. And she says, Arian, we have to let you go. And I'm like, let me go. What's happening? And she said, well, basically, everybody has to go. You're just the last hired, so you're the first fired because the company's being sold. I'm like, whoa. So with that being said, I went back to my apartment. Over time in some months, I guess I ran out of cash and I got a notice on my door to pay rent or quit. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to quit. Stayed there long enough. And then I moved from my apartment to my car. My mother's best friend paid for my storage, for my furniture. And it was off I went. And I was without a place to stay for about 7 months, but I wasn't depressed. There was one moment when I was just like down, but for the most part, I was 23 years old and I was figuring out life and I was going to make it work.
Yeah. Where did you get the motivation or that determination, that entrepreneurship mindset? Where did that come from?
I've always had it.
It just innately.
Yeah. But there's studies about that. Yeah, there are a lot of studies. People always, now to me, entrepreneurship is more so like on trend. But I've been like this forever. And I remember reading these studies way before this became like on trend. I just look 25, but I'm 39. Seriously.
You do.
No, thank you. I was being kidding, but thank you.
You're welcome.
So they said, Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of which studies were. There's plenty of studies about it. People were trying to figure out, even in before these centuries, are entrepreneurs made or born?
Mm.
And they can't figure out that. But what they did say was that the ability to take risk has a genetic trait to it.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So did your parents have
So
that?
my dad.
Okay.
My father's an entrepreneur. He's never worked for anybody.
Mm.
I mean, in his adulthood, no. I mean, I only did for 30 days.
Yeah.
So genetically, and even I would say, even on my mother's side, she's more of an entrepreneur, because though she did work someplace, she's very entrepreneurial minded. And on her side of the family, we're loaded with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So while they can't prove that, they did say that the ability to take risk and have that, basically not being risk averse and that risk taking mindset, can be proven genetically.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So I don't know if this is like a nature versus nurture. I think I had nature and nurture in that aspect. I had nature on my side, that this is my genetic makeup, and I had nurture on my side because I was surrounded by people who definitely poured this into me and supported this. So it's been a little bit of both for me.
So
I gotta keep going through this story, but I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ericka.
No, keep going.
No. You go ahead with the question. What's your question?
I hear a pause and I go, oh, it's time for me to ask a question. But no, okay, yeah. I guess the questions will probably kind of guide us through there. But okay, so after that, you lived in your car, and then somebody helped you sort of store your stuff, and then what was it that sort of propelled? I think it was after that, right, that you started sort of on your pathway upward.
Yeah. So someone reached out to me that noticed my work from Apple Bottoms. And I'm like, dang, couldn't you find me months ago? But yeah, they reached out to me and they said, we need you to do some PR marketing work. Of course, I said yes. I applied for 153 jobs. At that point, nobody had hired me. I'm like, sure. Then they referred me to somebody who referred me to somebody. And I looked up and I had like 5 to 7 projects in literally 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I have a business. From there, I'm having a moment now, just even thinking about how dynamic that is. But yeah, so I went to go stay in an office space because I knew at that time the kind of apartment that I would, could afford would not be presentable for these clients. So I stayed in an office space. I lived out of there for about a month, just figuring it out. And while I was staying there, Coach Carter from the movie Coach Carter, it's a basketball movie on Paramount, he found me sleeping on the floor. He was doing business on the floor and he was just like, wait, you're living in here? And I was just like, well, yeah, it's okay. Trust me, I'm fine. And he said, well, no woman should have to live like this. And I said, trust me, I'm okay. And he said, well, I said, well, how are you going to help me? Because we're going to help you. I said, well, how are you going to help me? He said, well, I'm going to get you hired for my film because movie studios outsource people for PR and marketing, what you do here. And I was just like, oh, okay. So that worked. And he wasn't the thing. He was like the thing that led to the thing. Because then I realized if they outsource, that means all the studios outsource.
Yeah. Totally.
So I called somebody who I knew, Will Packer and Rob Hardy. They weren't big names then, they are now, but I called them and I said, hey, I gave the whole life story. This is what's happened to me. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm building. And I'm hearing that movie studios do this. And they got me an interview over at Sony Pictures. And I ended up working on their movie, Stomp the Yard. And then from Stomp the Yard, doing so well, it turned into Walt Disney calling and Universal calling and all the major studios.
Wow.
So yes, I ended up building a very successful PR marketing business in the entertainment industry, servicing major studios in the area of publicity and promotions for their films. So from Will Smith films to Robert De Niro to Kevin Hart, James Bond movies. I mean, like, you name it.
Wow. So wait, did you have staff at this point? Like, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, was like, you're not doing this all on your own, right?
Girl, bye. That's too much.
I was like, I don't know. You really are superwoman in that case.
No. I'm not about to run myself ragged. I have staff now.
Yes.
I am not about to live like that. Okay. That is just way too much.
So how did you get then to the point where you were like, okay, like I actually can now become the investor that I always dreamed of being?
Oh, about 12 years in, I guess you would say. Yeah, more like 12. I've always still, it would like pull at me a little bit here, a little bit there. And I'm like, okay. And then when the venture capital industry started getting, I would say, more recognition in pop culture, I guess I would put it that way, or more notoriety in that space, it was probably more prevalent to me of what was going on. I would even say, of course, like the success of the Facebooks and whether it's Instagram or in the tech industry, everybody is starting to see this revolution go on. And I started meeting more people in the venture capital industry. And from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to get on the other side of this table. I started researching statistics. I knew I desired to be the business investor that I was looking for, but I was not aware that Black women were receiving 0.0006% of venture funds. I was not aware that women of color were at 0.06%, so less than 1% also. And I was not aware that women were under 5%. So I noticed that there was not just a lack of diverse investments, but there were a lack of diverse investors. The industry is 80% white male. So I'm like, well, that's the issue. We need to get on the other side of the table in order to change what this distribution looks like. So went and got SEC regulated, got securities attorneys, got my partners on board, Keisha Knight Pulliam and Ayanna Parsons. Got our advisory team, our investment committee. They got about 400 million in assets under management because I knew we were emerging fund managers. I wanted just to make sure we were equipped with the proper guidance. And just things just tend to fall in place in my life.
Yeah.
Like how that one person reached out to me from them noticing me being great at apple bottoms. And that's why I tell everybody, you want to operate in a spirit of excellence because you just never know who's watching. I had no clue these people would call me.
Right.
And same in this case. I got a call from Marseille Martin's parents. She plays the youngest girl in the sitcom Blackish on ABC. She's also the youngest producer in Hollywood.
I love Blackish. That's such a good show.
Oh, yeah, she would love to hear that. Yeah, she's the youngest producer also in Hollywood as a teenager. And her family said, Arian, what are you getting ready to do in the VC world? And I was just like, how do you guys know I'm doing anything? I haven't told anybody. And they're like, well, you're quoting a lot of statistics on social media. We know that you're probably, because I'm very solution oriented. They're like, we're gearing up for something. What is
You're like, we're reading between the lines here.
Yes. And they were, and they're very intuitive people. And I said, well, why? And they said, because we want to be your first investor. And I said, what? They were like, for real. They were like, send over the paperwork and we'll wire the money. And I'm like, oh, I actually do have paperwork and you guys can send it over. And this is awesome. So that's what I mean by things just fall into place when you have a vision. And when you have a vision, provision is always provided. And provision can just be broken down as being pro the vision. When you're pro something, you're for it. And when you're con something, you're against it. And things will start to come in alignment with whatever your vision is. And things will be pro the vision.
Yeah, that's so good. I've never thought about it. Yeah, I've never broken down the word like that, but it makes so much sense. Well, your book, a lot of your book is about that very concept that you just laid out. And like I said, the book title is The Fearless Money Mindset. So what is a fearless money mindset? Oh, gosh. I wrote the book because people have more fear in being broke than they do faith in having abundance. And a fearless money mindset is actually a faith mindset as it pertains to your finances and you having that conviction and that belief that something is already done and that you are valued and that you are worthy of all of the abundance because it is your birthright. And the book opens up with the scene of myself and my very good friend and line sister, Katara. She was Hampshire at the time, Katara Coleman. We were in the drive-thru at El Pollo in LA. And she said, oh, it happened again.
And I was like, what happened again? She was like, it happened again. I didn't know what she was talking about. And she was like, at whatever time in the morning, you said you needed an extra $10,000 by 4 p.m. And it happened. I said, well, of course. And I'm laughing now, but the me then, Ericka, was not laughing. I wish I still operated in that naivete. I still have the same conviction, and I still have the same faith to believe on that same exact level. But I had a level of naivete where I was like, what are you talking about? Of course it happened. Like now I could look back at it and laugh, but I looked at her like she was nuts. I was like, you don't believe? And she was just like, yeah, but your faith is unwavering.
Yeah.
She was like, you don't move in it. And I was just like that's what faith is. Like that's in my mind.
That's true.
That's what I was thinking. And I love that story because I go back to it just to remind me. Because see, through life, people will project their fears onto you and people will put their doubts onto you. And you can subconsciously start obtaining some of that stuff in your mind. So you have to be mindful of that. So I love thinking back to that story. It's in the intro of the book of, I was looking at her like she was nuts. I looked to the side. I said, yeah, of course this happened. What do you mean?
How do you think that works? Like the sort of like manifestation of, this thing, this vision? Is it just because it's just
when you believe you're worthy of something, it does happen quicker.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think so much of life is that mental side of it, and that like so far beyond the physical things that we can do. Although, of course, you got to do that part too. But talk to me a little bit about, so I heard you on Marie Forleo, who I've been as well.
Oh, I love her.
Longtime Marie fan. I think I went through B school like a long time ago, like 2013.
I'm teaching B.
Are you? Yeah. And, I never, created like, the thriving business that a lot of those people did. But I am an entrepreneur myself. I work for myself. I have clients. And I've written a book. And so I really feel like I took a lot from B school, even if I didn't use it necessarily in the way that I envisioned when I first started out. So all that to say, Marie has been very inspiring to me. And of course, she's inspired so many other people to do what she's done in their own individual ways. And I know you said she inspired you, but I heard you say on the show that you were a Christian. And then I looked you up and I thought, oh, she's written a devotional for female entrepreneurs and her faith is really important to her. And so that's what sort of drew me to you because, that sort of sets you apart from a lot of the people that you see out speaking on some of like financial matters, for example. So can you tell me a little bit about your faith and how that influences your decision-making and just sort of how you live your life?
Question, are you Christian?
I am, yes.
Okay, she said that's what drew me. I was just wondering. My faith is my foundation. And that is clear. There are plenty of things that I do, whether it's from meditation or affirmations. Like I've got bukus of stuff in front of me to where those are all tools for my personal development. But my faith is my foundation. This is where I hold my belief sets at. And I operate in those principles and the beliefs of the Christian faith in everything that I do, which is just pretty much you're seeing the offsprings of all of what my faith is. So for me, that's just my core. I start the day thanking God. I start the day in prayer. I pray, I fast. My relationship with the Lord is of the utmost priority in my life. Everything else just comes right after.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of, like I say, different tools that you may hear me talk about that I do, but my faith is definitely my foundation. It's what's given me the belief that all of anything else that I practice will be in my favor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that God is for me.
And what kinds of messages did you put in that devotional for female entrepreneurs? Like,
that thing is good. Let me tell you, I think that book may even be outselling the new book. Like that's how crazy.
Really? That's pretty cool. Because there probably
I don't know if it's pretty cool because I'm trying to make money off both.
Well, that's I was going to say, well, there's probably not a ton of like that kind of specific
You're
type
right.
of devotional out there.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to probably go back to that. And I'm not going to say this, or Lord have mercy, because this is a podcast. People will be like, well, I'm looking for the next devotional. And I don't mean from that standpoint. I'm fine with either one. I was making a joke. I'm fine with one selling the way it's selling. And this one, like I say, don't get me wrong, Fearless Money Mindset is selling amazing, especially considering it's a pandemic and I can't get on the road to promote.
I know, that's so hard.
Yeah, so we did thousands we could release as far as selling books, but I see how strong that devotional is still like going and thriving now, and especially at a time like this of a pandemic, people are probably loving going on the 21-day journey. So, and you're right, I'm not your typical church girl. So that, like, we can put that on the table. So I'm pretty sure with that being said, I probably just have more of a mass appeal and more people will relate to me. Mm-hmm. So the devotional, it's made for the female entrepreneur in mind, because it's really my morning routine in the book. Mm-hmm. People always just wanted to know, what was your morning routine? So I just put it in the book. Yeah. And I was just like, my morning routine is, like I told you, I'm thanking God top of the morning. So there's a scripture in there. There's a prayer in there. There are daily affirmations in there, which I do. There are exercises in there. There are meditations in there. There are gratitude lists in there. Every day takes you on a different journey. And there's also a biography, or more of a testimony, of another Christian woman that's an entrepreneur and her success. I'm pretty sure for the most part, everybody's like, definitely from a standpoint of, I guess you would say, financial measurement, everybody's probably for the most part, pretty much millionaires. And these are their journeys and their stories as well, too. Because for the Christian faith, we believe that people are overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of one's testimony. So sharing these stories is encouragement for people to listen to and be inspired by. So every day there's a different story. So I got all my girlfriends together that were of the faith. And I'm like, hey, I need your story for the book. They're like, sure. And it's very universal. There's white women in there. There's Black women in there. There's brown women in there. I got some of my Hispanic girlfriends are in there sharing their stories. So it covers my friends across the gamut. And just so people see, okay, this is somebody who's like me and I can relate to them.
Yeah. I mean, the personal stories are just the most inspiring thing that you can see, because you actually can see the play out of it, how it happened. And I want to ask you a question, sort of a different topic, which is, what is sort of like the biggest blocker you see women or people in general having about money? Because we all want more money, right? Like I'm trying to make more money here, and but money is like a contentious subject, and people have a weird relationship.
It's taboo. It is.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to identify when you're saying blocker, it's all rooted in fear. That's why I say fearless money mindset. Yeah. But everybody's fear is different. Mm-hmm. So you need to identify what that is. And I can't tell you what that is for each person, because for everybody, that's something different. But whatever it is, it's definitely rooted in fear. And you want to be able to speak to what that is and say, okay, this is what I'm scared of. And then now I can get a remedy out of it. Now, one thing I do tell people, this is just a basic practice. And I think I got this even from, was it Tim Ferriss? I got it from somebody. Mm-hmm. And basically, once that person identified what that was, they wrote out a model and it said, okay, worst case scenario, if this thing happens, what is your way out of it? And if it was like a 3-part scenario. So if the thing happened, what was your way out of it? If it didn't happen, how would you operate? And if like maybe part of it happened or something like that. But what it did was it gave you a roadmap. So therefore, you didn't have to fear if it happened, you had a way out of it. Mm-hmm. So whatever that thing is, if it took place, it's like, oh, don't worry about it taking place, because I got a plan to get out of this. And what that is, it's called like informed confidence. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's not like it's confidence you have, but because you informed yourself of it, you're not even worried about it anymore. Because if that thing supposedly takes place, I got a way to get out of it, so I'm gonna keep going. Right. So you're not blindly, just taking a leap without recognizing, that there are action steps to take and like weighing the benefits out and stuff.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You also talk about the importance of giving back in the book,
Yeah.
and how that really is really vital to, like, if you're going to make money, you're not, it's not going to happen if you're not willing to give back, essentially. So what can you say about that? How is that sort of a priority in your mindset?
Well, it's currency is just that. It's an exchange. It's a current. It's an energy exchange. And when you have an exchange, that means that there's something going this way and there's something going that way. And you have to play on both sides of the exchange in order to stay in alignment. And that's why sowing and giving is so important, because it's part of the whole circulation of what's taking place. Of course, you don't give everything away. You just play your part in, okay, what is my portion to give? Because when you give everything away, there's a difference between giving and self-sacrificing.
Mm-hmm.
You give from what you have. If you're giving everything away, then therefore you're making a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference. So you want to make sure that you're giving from a full cup, first
Right.
and foremost. No different whether it's your energy, your money, or anything.
Right.
You want to give from that place. But yes, it's very important that you definitely do that. For me, it has been a secret, honestly, to my success.
Yeah.
My heart for giving and sowing and all of that, it shows up in complete harvest. Even at my church, we just had like our Super Sunday. And I was like, okay, I know I plan to give one thing and I feel a little stretched to give a little more. But I'm like, I know because of that something major is about to happen, that even financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, everything. I'm like, I know with those seeds in the ground, that a huge harvest is coming.
Yeah, that's so good. This wasn't on the list of questions, but you mentioned church, so I'm just going to go for it. So I actually write a lot about the church. It's in sort of my freelance writing, and I just always like to ask people, as someone that goes to church, like, why do you think that's important? Because so many people are leaving church these days. Like, why do you continue to go and make that a part of your faith?
You are correct, but I believe that the fellowship of believers is important, first and foremost. I believe that you're surrounding yourself by other people who believe, and that is an energy exchange. So you want to be surrounded by that. And it's no different than somebody's faith may rub off on yours and your faith may rub off on theirs. And you want to be in the midst of that. So that's what that is for me. I think what church looks like today for a lot of people just may be changing. I don't know if they're leaving their faith, more so they may just not be in the building. But I do think that the gathering of other believers is definitely still important to your Christian lifestyle.
Okay.
And at some point, I plan on getting over to Ethiopia to see the first church.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
But yes, I do. I do think that being in the midst of that energy, that there's a level of, I don't want to say magic. Well, I'm going to say magic for the sake of this call or this interview. I know the church will probably be like, that should be called something else, but I'm calling it magic today. But there is a certain electricity and a certain shift in the atmosphere and magic that happens in that environment. And because you're surrounded by so many people who believe what you believe, the downloads that you start to receive can take place in an atmosphere like that.
Yeah, that's so true. I was just reading about something this morning and just like learning about why is the church so important. And it's just like, that's where, like, God is everywhere, right? He's all the time.
Completely.
But he really likes to, the Holy Spirit really likes to like dwell within the church. And so when you go there, you're going to experience him in a way that you might not experience him anywhere else. And that's really valuable to your faith. Well, thank you for sharing that and letting me go off track for just a moment.
You're more than fine.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Fearless Fund. How fun to be able to do that. How cool to be able to do that. I know that you mentioned that there wasn't anything like the Fearless Fund before you started it, like investing in women.
I didn't even know it.
Yeah. And so it's like, wow, what an untapped market to be able to
I'm just like
help.
this. I'm like this. um, when I'm given a vision from God, I'm just like this. So I
Yeah.
had no clue that I was creating the first of anything. You know what I mean? So it was just a mission and a vision and sought out to solve a problem. And later on, the media let us know that, oh, you guys are the first women of color fund that is built by women of color for women of color. I was just like, oh.
You're like, what?
But in the words of our Madam Vice President-elect, I will not be the last. We
Oh,
will
there
not
you
be the
go.
last. Yes.
Yes.
So hopefully we're sparking other people to be on that mission as well too. But yeah, I didn't have that. What was your question again? To make sure I answered.
I was just asking you about, I wasn't really a question.
Oh,
We're just sort of
got you.
chatting about the Fearless Fund.
Got you. We are the first, like I said, women of color fund that's built by us for us. We invest in women of color businesses early stage. So early stage funding typically happens like in these rounds. There's like a pre-seed round, a seed round, and a Series A round for entrepreneurs and startups. And that's pretty much what that looks like. We are delighted and excited. We have amazing institutional investors on board, from PayPal as our lead investor to Invest Atlanta to Carter to Fifth Third Bank to Lisk. I mean, the list at this point, the list is just long as far as who our investors are. Yeah, and plenty of wonderful individuals as well too. And it's been a great journey. That's why I said things just happen to fall into place in my life. Your podcast this morning has me in a very retrospective mood and place of just going back and seeing how things just come together.
Yeah.
But that's what we are doing. We have a pitch competition coming up.
Oh, fun.
We've had one. The first one, Sarah Blakely hosted it at the Spanx headquarters.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yes.
I love her. She's great.
Yes.
So what kind of stands out to you? Like when you see a business, like maybe at the pitch competition or whatever, like what is it that makes you go them? Like I'm interested in them.
Oh, that's a very good question. There's two things that's going to grab anybody's attention. It's a great brand story and it's your financials. So when you have the brand story, that's what's going to be like, okay, they're on to something. And then you have traction. I shouldn't just say financials. It's more so traction, because like in the tech space, some of them don't have the financials to start off with. But traction, you're like, oh, and traction could be like you have 100,000 users on your beta app, or you have this many people on social media. Your traction may look different. Your traction may be that, oh, you guys had 500,000 in revenue last year or last month. You know, traction looks different, but really it's a good brand story and your momentum and movement in the marketplace. Those are the two things I would say as far as like what's going to catch an investor's eye.
Do you have any right now that are really exciting that you could share?
Oh yeah.
Can you give us a name?
Yeah.
Tell me. I want to know.
I'm like, yeah. We have Hairbrella. I want you to go to hairbrella.com. Okay. They are the rain hat reinvented. Tracy Pickett is the founder. She is an attorney and an inventor. Okay. It's a patent product, and this is not your grandmother's rain hat. Oh God!
You have one?
No, I'm trying to see. Oh, not within reach.
Oh, that's okay.
Yes, darn. Because it was sitting right here. That's why I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, I moved it upstairs. Yes, but she's grown by leaps and bounds. So just last year, she was looking at like $1,400 and $1,600 months. Now she's she's seen 6-figure days. She's been on Good Morning America twice. Yeah, consistently 6-figure months, but Good Morning America twice this year. The View, Beyonce put the product up on her website.
Well, that'll do it.
She's having a very she's on not even just a good year. She's having a very good trajectory. She keeps growing. And that's what I mean by traction. Somebody doing 3 times, she's doing way more than 3 times than the year prior, but stuff like that, that's good traction. You want to see them moving in an upward space of momentum.
Okay, that's really cool for all of us that like to watch. What's the Mark? Yes, I'm like, what's the Mark Cuban show? Like I forgot the name of it. Yeah, pitching stuff is so much fun. Okay, I had another question. Now I have to look because I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, so we're almost done. But I did want to ask you okay, when it comes to investing, I feel like people just aren't thinking about it enough. It's so important. And I'm lucky that I have a dad who's really instilled the importance of investing into me. And so that's something that I do on a regular basis. But what is maybe one tip that you would give to people who really are sort of beginners at investing their money?
First, the disclaimer is I'm not a financial advisor in that aspect.
Yes.
But my first tip that I give anybody is you need to find something that you like, which is what they tell everybody if you're about to invest in stocks. They're like,
right.
What are you consuming? That's where you need to have ownership. And honestly, that's just good energy because that's where your interests lie. So that's my suggestion for anybody who's looking to get into investing, is to make sure that it's in an area of interest that you already currently support financially and that you like.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Because people always feel so overwhelmed by the stock market. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that difficult. Okay. Who's somebody that inspires you or that you look up to as a role model?
There are plenty of people. My mother, of course. I'm like, but there are plenty of people. And they're the people who we all know, the Michelle Obamas and the Oprahs and just trailblazing women.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many. I know it's like if anybody ever asked me that question, it's so hard to like sort of rein it in because there is no one person. Everybody sort of contributes to it. Okay, I love to ask people what they've been reading or listening to or watching. So do you have any recommendations? Books, podcasts, TV shows, movies, anything that's sort of on your radar right now?
Well, I'm looking forward to reading Barack Obama's book. It releases today.
Oh, is it today? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I think I'm looking forward to that. But lately, I mean, I read a lot of business and self-development books and things in that area, but I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that'll be a bestseller.
We already know.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of books, everyone that's listening and watching, make sure you go grab a copy of Arian's book. I have a copy. I wish I had it and I'd hold it up right here, but I don't have it in the room, just like your thing. But it was really good, really inspiring. I think you will come away from it just feeling sort of empowered and just like, okay, like you have a quote in there that is something like leave room for God to do the miracle. And I thought that was
for God to perform miracles. It's in both, it's actually in both books.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. It's so good. It's like if you're not believing that God can do that, like you don't have enough faith because He can. So thank you for your very positive, inspiring message, and thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm honored.